Good morning, and thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Michael already has touched a number of subjects that I'm also going to talk about. Industry 4.0 is something that is very important for Siemens, for us as a company. It's very important for me, for myself, because it will play a major role in how the future will look like and how also the future of our society will look like. So we want to be here and together shape this future. So, but this, as I said, is a very crucial and important topic. And if you look at the environment that we are living in, it's increasingly changing. It's fast changing. If you look at this picture here, that was taken in 2005 in Rome at some kind of a special event, and you see the crowd of people. And just 8 years later, the picture looked like this. You see these mobile phones, you see the iPads, they are becoming kind of a remote control for our lives. And this is something that is really impacting the way how we live, how we act, how we work, how we socially interact. And that is something that is absolutely fascinating. Michael has spoken about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution and the previous industrial revolutions were mainly driven by technology, starting from the first Industrial Revolution, where we were actually implementing mechanical production with the assistance of steam and hydropower to actually substitute some of the physical work that people have been doing. Towards the second industrial revolution in the 19th century, where we industrialized the production levels through the usage of energy instead of steam power, in order to also then enable mass production. And now we are coming towards the third industrial revolution, which is starts around the 20th century, where process automation through the usage of software and electronic components allowed us to increase the productivity in our productions. And now what is happening now? Now we are facing the fourth industrial revolution, which is a cyber-physical system that makes it possible to interact, to allow machines to interact with itself in the production levels. And the future is to come. So let's have a quick look how this industrial revolution looked like.
The first industrial revolution spreads from England. The introduction of the steam engine begins to transform the agrarian society into an industrialized one. Craftsmanship is replaced by machine production. Large factories are built and new jobs are created. Production facilities in cities manufacture large numbers of products quickly and efficiently. The second industrial revolution discovers electricity as a driving force, enabling assembly lines to produce standardized high-quality goods in record time. Automation, advanced telecommunication systems such as telephones and telegrams, and increasing mobility enable worldwide trade and mass consumption. Innovations in microelectronics and information technology characterize the third stage. Manufacturing introduces automated programmable control systems. Production becomes faster, more precise, and much less expensive. Goods become universally affordable. Digital services drive the fourth industrial revolution. In Industry 4.0, products and machines are increasingly networked and function autonomously. This transformation causes mass customization to merge with mass production. The entire value chain is optimized.
That actually looks very nice, but we see a number of additional megatrends that are shaping the way and the world that we are living in. We have a demographic change where we see that the Earth's population will actually increase from 7.3 billion to 9.6 billion in 2050. And the average life expectancy will be 83 years old. We see that the significant impact comes from climate change. Climate change that, according to scientists, in the summer of 2015 contributed to the highest CO2 levels in the atmosphere within 800,000 years. On the other hand, we see urbanization. We see it here in Karachi, that expectations are that in 2050, 70% of the world's population will actually live in cities. In 2014, it was 54%. And what we have already seen is the globalization is becoming more and more a trend where the volume of trade worldwide has already doubled between the year 2000 and 2014. We see it now in Pakistan also with CPEC, with the Chinese coming in, with others, foreign direct investors coming in. But all of this will be disrupted with another mega trend, and this is digitalization. And the expectation is that in 2020, that's 2 years down the line, 44 zettabytes, which is a 10-fold increase to 2013, will be the digital universe that we are living in. Let's have a look at, and actually do a quick quiz on how long it took for some of the products to reach a worldwide 50 million users. The first one, the telephone, any guess how long it took? Anybody? 50 years, 75 years. It took 75 years to reach 50 million users globally. How about the radio? Any guess? Anyone? 45. It was 38 years, very close. It took 38 years to get there. Similar to the TV. 13 years. So it's getting faster and faster. What about the World Wide Web, the internet as we know it? 3 years. Facebook? 1 year, very good. And now, the highlight? Whoops, Pokemon. 5 days. So you see, it's amazing how quickly these things are changing. And how fast and how unpredictable fast you reach a global population that it took in the beginning in 75 years. Now you reach them in 5 days. This is amazing. We see this digital effect also on our value chain. You see from a physical world into a digital world, there will be a lot of opportunities coming out of it. I'll give you one example. I'm not sure whether this thing here works. Yeah, you don't see it that well. It's a train. What we have developed as Siemens, we have been, together with our operators of the train and the metros in the cities, one of the problems was if the doors are not closing properly, then the train cannot leave the station. And in Germany, punctuality is very important, so what we did and what the operators did, they were utilizing inspectors. So they brought the man that took the measurement, looked at how long it takes that the door is actually closing, and to understand whether there's a mechanical defect or there's something wrong with the motor or something like this. So this took a lot of effort and a lot of human resources to do this, and also causes some unnecessary delays. And if this is not done in the regular form, then he might miss the door and the train is departing late, and then people in Germany are very unhappy. So what we did was we utilized cameras. And those cameras were so, at the different train stations, so strategically positioned that they were actually monitoring the time it took to close the door, and together with then the data analytics out of the system with the motor and the other systems, they were able to predict if one of these doors is not functioning properly, and you could send and dispatch one of the operators to actually fix it in order to ensure that the trains are leaving in time. So this is something that is I hope everybody is okay over there. That is one of the effects that we see in the area of digitalization. We have seen, and Michael mentioned it already, the digital disruption is also changing dramatically the business model as we know them. We have seen that companies like Uber, which is the largest taxi company in the globe, has actually no vehicles, and the same goes for Airbnb, which is providing the largest accommodation portal, but it actually doesn't have and own any real estate. And it's similar with Facebook and Alibaba. So something really dramatically is happening. When we look at the Internet of Things and the milestones, in 2000, LG announced that it wants to introduce the first Internet refrigerator. In 2016, they are rolling it out now. We also see that in 2008, 2009, the so-called Internet of Things was born, where more things or objects were actually connected to the Internet than real people. What is the Internet of Things today? We see cars that you can actually hire with an application. You can locate them, you can hire them with an application on your mobile phone. This is something that is working in Germany, in Hamburg, and in some of the bigger cities where you can just go in, unlock the car, and drive away with it. We have the smart cities where you have different ways of transportation, where you have intelligent traffic control systems in place and working, where you have a smart energy management, where consumers are actually also producing energy and selling it via blockchain and microgrids to each other. And you also have a very advanced emergency management system in place. And it's the topic of industry that collects data to improve processes, with a focus on reducing costs, improving the quality, and also increasing the speed, by also then supporting to, as I gave the example, minimizing downtimes by applying predictive maintenance cycles. So industry or IoT wants to create a better world in the industry, where the objects around us know what we need and what we want, and act accordingly without explicit instructions. Some of the examples that we have and that we are currently doing that is a bit different towards the normal consumer Internet of Things. We are working in power generation, where we apply the digital systems to predict turbine outages and improve the performance. We have the rail automation, vehicle control systems that allow us to run trains with a 99.995 efficiency. For example, in countries where with extreme harsh environmental conditions. CNC controls, industrial automation, medical imaging. So these are all some of the examples that we have. And when you compare the B2B applications with actually the applications that you have in your hand with a mobile phone, you see on a mobile phone you have maybe some of 6 sensors. You have a gyroscope, a compass, distance sensor, but with a motor you have more than 2,000 actual data points. And we believe that with our and with the certain industrial expertise that we have, plus the new business models that can be applied, that will be the success stories for the industries of the future. MindSphere, it was mentioned briefly beforehand. MindSphere is a Siemens cloud-based open IoT operating system. And when you want to see what MindSphere is actually doing, a good analogy is what Microsoft did with Windows. When Windows was introduced, it created a revolution in regards of computer and laptop utilization, because what it did was that it was actually collecting data from devices like motherboards and hard disks and monitors and mouses and stuff like this, and it was enabling to run with a number of software applications, Oracle, Microsoft Office, in order to create output that everybody could use. With this, it exploded the user friendliness of a computer, creating Oscar movies, to producing text documents, to doing these PowerPoints as you see them here. And that is something similar to what we see with MindSphere, because MindSphere is doing the same, but just on an industrial scale. So you connect the real world by, be it a turbine, an airplane, other industrial equipment, and then bring it into a database, and then with intelligent software applications, you can then extract important information and run your processes, optimize your processes. But what does all of this have as an effect on our workforce? The people trends that we see now in 2018 is some of them actually don't need an office any longer. Yeah? So the brick and mortar activities, not in all cases are they any more required. People's need to drive their own career is becoming more and more important. We see some of the employees, as we know them today, will not exist anymore in the future. And we actually require to much more get our people to collaborate with each other, which is one of the major effects that is going to taking place in order to really transform into a digital environment. When you see here on the left side, you see what were the normal standards of employees in the past, where we had the normal working day 9 to 5, and whereby we are now looking at actually being able to work anywhere, anytime. We work in corporate offices. We are now able to work more or less anywhere. We are focused on inputs. Now in the future, we are more focused on outputs. And predefined work will be replaced by customized work. And the one that normally was hoarding his own information in order to protect himself, it's now towards sharing information more openly and really then also collaborating. The driver of digitalization is mainly technology, and it actually affects the way how we define our business models, and also it heavily affects our operations. But in the end, it's the entire power of digitalization can only be achieved by really looking at our people and empowering them to really adopt and live the changes that we need to live in order to really be able to transform this successful digital approach. These are some of the examples that we have. We have the major 3 action fields, as I mentioned before. We have a business model which is driven by technology, which is affecting our operations, but overall, it's mainly the people that really contribute to a successful transformation. So it's all depends on how you enable your employees and your staff to take over the responsibility and then do the change needed in order to transform. Some of the action fields that are related to the people and that are actually particularly important are the way how we collaborate with each other. How do we actually now, and this was also already mentioned by Michael, how do we actually lead people? How do we continue to educate ourselves? It's a lifelong learning process that becomes more and more important. And how do we organize and help organizing our work environment? And I think here it says it very clearly. It's important that each individual person is really changing the mindset. It becomes more and more important that the mindset of the past is transferred and changed. And when I say changed, then on the left side what we see is I don't like changes, I stick to what I know. I can solve the problem by myself, and my abilities that I have and that I have been training are actually sufficient. This is a mindset that we need to change, and that needs to shift into a mindset of really being inspired also by the success of others, by really liking to try out new things, be flexible enough to try out new things, and also see sometimes, not in all cases, but in a number of areas, to see failure also as an opportunity. This is something that we are working very hard on to also implement in our teams and make sure that this is being reflected in the way how we work. It's this change. It's something that starts with each individual. The impossible, unable, unsolvable, and undoable needs to stop. It needs to transfer into actually a positive approach, and that is something that we continuously engage with our teams when we sit down with them, when we talk to them, when we hire new people, but also our existing workforce, in order to help them to transfer into the new world of digitalization, to bring them on board and work together with them. It's in a lot of cases it's very difficult. We have seen a certain level of hesitation and fear, and as all goes along the way of change, but it's a cultural change that is inevitable. So, and that's something where also our HR colleagues are tremendously important to understand and to shape it together with the whole teams. I was mentioning the way of changing the requirements of leadership from a traditional leadership point of view, which was mainly focused on control, over to a digital leadership where we are more and more giving the trust over to the employees, where we have on the one hand an organization. In the future we are working and depending heavily on the networking still that we have. Processes on the one side, agility in the future. We need to be flexible enough for the quick changes that are coming, and an openness towards things that are coming, and being transparent, and also don't hesitate to share and actively exchange information. I'm coming to the end. The Siemens has a so-called the triple E, the digital learning approach. We have about 320,000 people working for us globally, and the different age levels that we see requires an approach that we have called the triple E, the digital learning approach, which we are rolling out globally, which each individual is being required to actually himself or herself to participate, where we want to excite people to start really to think differently, where we want to educate people to think and act now differently, and where we then also finally want to encourage the people to think and act and behave also differently, because this is the recipe for the future, and this is something that we are believing very firmly, that this is an absolute necessity in order to secure the future sustainability of the operations that we have, and also the responsibility that we have towards our society. Michael mentioned it. Some of you, not sure whether you have heard the predictions of how the factory of the future will look like, with tons of robots and all the computers and the one human and the one dog. And the dog that is to be fed by the human, and the dog's main responsibility actually is to prevent the human to touch anything. That is something that we should be working together to avoid. And so with this I would like to end. Thank you very much. And we is always stronger than me.